everyone, it's been 3 months since my last video, and for those 3 months I have in some ways just been enjoying what I've been able to achieve so far. Still plenty of testing that needs to be done when you've automated quite a bit of your railway, but it's been nice to enjoy what I've achieved. I have made some further progress and I'll cover that in this video. So one of the noticeable changes I've made, and perhaps an easy one to explain, is that previously the DMU sidings just outside the station were 4 straight lines on this board here, so there'll be 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now the reason to change this is that previously I was using side mounted point motors for all of the points, and there were 2 reasons for that. One is that they were easy to install, and secondly there are supports underneath the board here, and I was struggling to get the point motors underneath the board. However, by adding an extra board along the front here, I've been able to change the position of the points. I've also gained an extra DMU siding, which helps, and also the lengths of some of these sidings is just a little bit longer, so that's helped with the reliability and also the amount of trains that I can store in this area. So all of the point motors in this area have been changed to under the board point motors, apart from this one here. That's because the point motor that I had is an old one that didn't work. So for now I've just put the side mounted one in, but it has been reliable since I've reinstalled it. Now one of the other areas that I've been working on that may be more difficult to show are the changes within JMRI. Now I've completed the track plan more fully, and I've added blocks to all of the sections of track and sections within JMRI. Previously I'd had a setup where the track plan was in JMRI but there were no blocks labelled up, and some of the sections were separate, not joined up together within JMRI. That had allowed me to operate the points through JMRI, but as I've mentioned in previous videos, it was only the station area that I had looked to automate, and that when trains had left the station area, although I could then take over from JMRI by essentially terminating the train but continuing running the train using the controller, the automation essentially stopped at the point that the train left the station area. It was also possible to run a train around the main layout manually, and then in dispatcher essentially tell that train that you're running to run it into the station, and as long as I was able to manually select a block just outside the station, JMRI would see that as the train that it will run automatically, and it would then take over the running of that train from my manual control. It didn't matter what speed the train was doing at the time, it would then essentially take over the running of that train. That was previously how I had it set up, and it was working well. I could run trains manually around the main layout, and then run a train into the station when I wanted to, and also vice versa. I could run a train out and I would then pick it up by essentially terminating the train when it hit a block just outside the station, but then pick that up by running the train manually with the controller, and as long as you catch it before the train stops, it looks like the train just continues to run and you take over the control. Now you could add occupancy sensors to the rest of the layout, and with the sensors I have only costing a couple of pounds, it would be a possible way forward. However, I think I found a way in which I can achieve some automation of the main layout without having to install sensors on every block within the rest of the layout, at least to a point where the automation is providing a useful solution to me when running trains, and I just want to try to talk you through that now. So to start off, it's worth me mentioning that a lot of this involves the use of internal sensors. So you can set up a number of sensors which are not linked to an Arduino. They're just an internal JMRI sensor, and you can then set those sensors to be used as the block occupancy sensor for a particular block. You can then add a sensor icon to your track plan, which allows you to then tell JMRI that the block is active. So taking this as an example, I can say that that block is active, that one, and this is essentially telling JMRI that there is a train in this block. So I've used that previously in some ways to tell JMRI that as it takes the train out of the station, that block then becomes active, which means that JMRI thinks that the train has got there, even though there is no actual block occupancy detection on that piece of track. The next part of this would be that within a transit, which is essentially saying that a train is moving from one place to another, you can choose to set sensors active as part of that movement. So if I, for example, take platform 3 to up fast, as part of this, it'll go through platform 3, down fast with up slow, up fast tunnel. All of those sections have block occupancy detection. There is a sensor detecting that a train is pulling current. But after that, apart from the final block, none of these sections have block occupancy detection. However, when the train enters a block that does, I can then choose to set another sensor active. So up fast tunnel, which does have block occupancy detection, then 2 seconds after it's entered that block, it will set the next sensor active, and so it continues, so that throughout the journey from A to B, in this case from platform 3 to the up fast start section, it will be setting sensors active, even those ones where there is no block occupancy detection. Now at first I did not have a block occupancy sensor on up fast main start, which is the final block, and I would essentially on my track plan just click the sensor icon to tell JMRI that the train had reached its destination. And at that point the train would then know to stop, and yet the JMRI has essentially driven that train from A to B, and that was my starting point. However, taking this now a step further, I've added a sensor to the final block, so JMRI will essentially run the train automatically, and I don't need to tell JMRI that the train has reached its destination. So what are the benefits of all this? Well, it means that the train will run automated, and JMRI will control all of the points and stop and start the train. It also means that any other trains that have been automated will work around that train. JMRI will control all the trains, and yet I haven't had to put sensors in all of the different blocks of track. So I found this really useful. I think it's worth bearing in mind that for a layout where you have a fiddle yard, for example, you could set up sensors on just the fiddle yard, which would allow a JMRI to essentially run one train round a loop, and then at some point it could then detect that it's reached the fiddle yard again and decide to send out a different train, and you wouldn't need many block occupancy sensors to enable something like that to work. You can then take it a step further, and if you have a station on your layout, you could then put a block occupancy sensor just in the station and the fiddle yard, So you would only need essentially 2 sensors, maybe 3 sensors if you want to then bring out a different train that would pass another train. So this is why I think this is a very useful way forward. Now the bit that I've probably forgotten to say, that I may use as the title of this video, is that you essentially wouldn't need any sensors on your track if you are going to tell JMRI when trains have entered a block by clicking the sensor icon on the track plan. And that would mean that you could have, again, a train layout with a fiddle yard where essentially you set 3 trains to run and you can control which trains are run automated by just telling JMRI when blocks are being occupied. Now I realise I probably have not explained that particularly well, so I'm going to try and just give a little demonstration of how this works. So bear in mind that the station area, which along here to this point here, has block occupancy detection on it. And then the only other places where I have block occupancy detection are these sections here, which are essentially around the back of the layout where I can store trains, and the return loop over here. I put a sensor in there, and maybe I'll cover the reasons for including that in a future video, but it just allows for ease of automation without me having to tell JMRI that the train has reached that. However, I do have the sensor icon on that block, so I could go back to telling JMRI when the train has reached the block myself. So I plan to run a train from platform 4. It will come out onto the main line, it will leave the block detection sensors, there isn't any in this area. It will then use the transit to keep setting blocks ahead of it, which means that JMRI will track progress. It doesn't accurately reflect where the train is, but it tracks a movement, and it won't make those blocks inactive until the train has reached its final destination. And then the train that I've set up in the return loop here will know, once that train's reached that destination, the route is clear to bring this train out and this train back into platform 4. So in Dispatcher, create a new train. This one will be platform 4 to up fast. Set it to the train that I have in platform 4, and then I will set that train to run. You can see it has allocated a route through the whole of the layout along the top past the areas that have block occupancy detection, and then I'll also run a train from the return loop into platform 4. The return loop here, the train cannot run until this has all been cleared. Now you'll see it's occupied the full length of the route. The train has essentially just entered the junction here, but the main thing is it isn't allowing the train in the return loop to leave to go to platform 4. Now, as the train has reached its destination, it has now been able to allocate a route for the train in the return loop. Again, there's no occupancy sensors on this section of track until it reaches this section here. Well, the bit that I have missed is there is a loco in platform 4, so I will now correct the mistakes that I've made and tell JMRI to remove the train from platform 4. And with the loco removed from platform 4, JMRI should now allocate the route into platform 4. And it's worth bearing in mind that currently where the train is held, it's kept the junction locked so that no other trains can cross the path, because there are a couple of coaches that remain across the junction. No apologies if that may seem complicated, but I'm just trying to explain how you could have automation of a layout, perhaps in some ways even without block occupancy sensors on your layout. They obviously help in certain places, but as I've proven here, none of this junction here has occupancy sensors on it. And yet this area now can be controlled by JMRI. If I can find an easier way to explain that, then I will try to put a video together for it. I think I've really enjoyed being able to automate some of my layout, and I'd just encourage others to take a look at what JMRI can do, even if the idea of sensors on your layout sounds particularly complicated. I'll wrap this video up there. Thanks for watching.